You thought Capricorn was wrong, but they were just early. There's something quietly unsettling about realizing a Capricorn was right, not just correct, but inevitably, unshakably, maddeningly right. Maybe they warned you not to trust someone, and you brushed it off. Maybe they told you that your dream project would fall apart, and you thought they were just being negative. Maybe they gave you advice that sounded cold until life proved them correct, inch by painful inch. You see, Capricorn doesn't scream for attention. They don't try to impress you with charm or drama. They watch. They calculate. And then they speak once with conviction. And if you ignore it, you'll remember their words echoing in your head long after the dust settles. There's a reason Capricorn is known as the Zodiac's mountain goat, not because they climb faster, but because they climb smarter. One step at a time, while others rush, burn out, and tumble back down. Today, we're going to explore the truth that so many people resist. Capricorn isn't just frequently right, they're usually the only one who saw it coming. And it's not magic. It's mindset. It's experience. It's a way of processing the world that filters out illusion and sees the structure behind everything, behind your excuses, behind society's chaos, even behind your own desires. If you've ever been warned by a Capricorn and ignored it, if you've ever felt annoyed by their caution, their skepticism, their relentless need for detail, you might want to watch this video all the way through. Because today, we're diving into the 12 real reasons why Capricorn is right even when everyone else is absolutely sure they're wrong. And by the end, you might just find yourself whispering the words so many others have said before you. Capricorn was right. Reason number 1. Strategic patience. When Capricorn sees what you don't yet know. Capricorns don't rush. They never have. And to some people, that looks like fear. Like indecision. Like cold feet. But it's not. It's strategy. While the world is sprinting to quick conclusions, easy answers, and half-baked commitments, Capricorn is playing the long game. They are the chess masters of the Zodiac, moving pieces silently, calculating 5 moves ahead, preparing for scenarios most people don't even realize exist. Let me tell you about Eleanor, a Capricorn executive whose boardroom presence was so quiet, some mistook her for irrelevant. When a flashy merger opportunity came up, her entire leadership team was practically salivating. More market share, short-term profits, a perfect PR win. But Eleanor said nothing. She asked strange questions no one else had considered. What if the other company's patent gets rejected? What's their employee retention in remote settings? How do they handle cross-department integration? The others rolled their eyes, thought she was being difficult, slowing things down. But Eleanor wasn't dragging her feet. She was imagining the collapse before it happened. 6 months later, every single issue she predicted came true. The deal crumbled and would have taken the company down with it if they had moved too quickly. Eleanor didn't need to say "I told you so." She didn't need revenge. Because Capricorns don't thrive on being right for the ego. They thrive on being right to protect. This kind of strategic patience isn't limited to business. Take Thomas, a Capricorn who dated slowly, painfully slowly, in fact. While his friends rushed into whirlwind romances, he waited, observed. Let the other person reveal themselves fully. Some thought he was cold or emotionally distant. But Thomas wasn't afraid of love. He was just wise enough to know that compatibility isn't found in chemistry, it's revealed through time. He once said, "I'm not hesitating. I'm evaluating our future arguments before they happen." That's Capricorn. They don't just look for what feels right, they look for what works long term. And here's the kicker. This ability to delay gratification, to resist the high of instant clarity, is exactly why they're often right in the end. In a world obsessed with speed, Capricorn is building something timeless. And maybe that's why they're misunderstood. Because most people only start to see what Capricorn warned about after it's already too late. Have you ever had a Capricorn warn you about something, and you didn't listen? Finish this sentence in the comments. Capricorn told me ______, and I didn't believe them, but then. Reason number 2. Outcome mapping. Capricorn doesn't just see the future. They simulate it. Capricorn doesn't just make plans, they build mental maps. While others are satisfied with a plan A and maybe a backup plan B, Capricorn is already calculating plan G, plan L, and even the weird plan Q that no one believes will ever happen, but somehow, always does. To the outside world, this looks like overthinking. To Capricorn, it's just responsible foresight. Let me introduce you to Sophia, a Capricorn city planner who once found herself in the middle of a political storm. The city was redesigning a major intersection, new roads, new bike lanes, new zoning. Everyone was focused on the top 3 outcomes: smoother traffic, more walkability, and maybe some new business traffic. But Sophia, She showed up to the meeting with a binder full of 17 different scenarios. Not 3. 17. People scoffed. They called it paranoid. Excessive. One council member even joked, "What's next? Alien invasion contingency?" But Sophia's scenario number 12, the one involving a freak combination of a 50-year flood, power outage, and rush hour, actually came true. 6 years later. And her recommendations saved lives. Capricorn doesn't predict the future like a mystic. They simulate the future like a systems engineer. They don't say what's likely, they ask, what's possible? Even if it's rare, even if it's messy, even if it's so improbable, most people don't dare look at it. And that's what gives Capricorn their razor-sharp edge. They think outside the pattern, not emotionally, but mathematically. Take Marcus, a Capricorn investor, for example. There was a parcel of land no one wanted, poorly zoned, inconvenient location, zero buzz. His colleagues laughed when he bought it. Useless, they said. But Marcus had already run simulations in his head. If zoning changes in 5 years, this triples in value. If zoning doesn't change, but commercial traffic increases by 20%, I break even. If both happen, I 10x. If neither happens, I still only lose 5%. He wasn't guessing. He was betting on calculated probabilities, not dreams. 3 years later, the zoning changed. And so did his bank account. So what's the deeper truth here? Capricorns don't get lucky. They just refuse to move without a map. And their maps aren't built from emotion or hope, they're built from data, past patterns, obscure possibilities, and risk-reward equations that most people would never even think to calculate. This is why Capricorns seem unshakable in chaos. They've already mentally walked through the storm. They've already asked themselves, what if this goes sideways? Not just once, but dozens of times. So when everyone else is panicking, grasping at the edges of a collapsing situation, Capricorn is calm. Because the future isn't surprising when you've already simulated it. Do you know someone who always thinks of the thing no one else saw coming? Tag them or tell us how a Capricorn strange what if turned out to be exactly right. Reason number 3. Emotional discipline. Capricorn feels deeply, but decides with clarity. There's a myth that Capricorns are cold. It's easy to believe if you've only seen their poker face, the calm voice in crisis, the measured response in emotional chaos, the silent expression when others are shouting. But that's not because Capricorn lacks emotion. It's because they've mastered something far rarer. Emotional discipline. Capricorns feel deeply, but when it's time to decide, they know how to set their feelings aside and ask, what is actually true here? What are the facts, not the hopes, not the fears? Take Dr. Abigail Jensen, a Capricorn research scientist. She was leading a groundbreaking pharmaceutical trial for a cancer drug, one that held immense personal meaning. Her own mother had died of the very illness the treatment was designed to fight. When the early data came back, it was disappointing. Ambiguous. Most of the team clung to hope, interpreting the data with desperate optimism. But Abigail? She stayed still. Read every line. Reran the stats. And then she did something most people didn't have the heart to do. She called for the trial to be shut down. I wanted this drug to work more than anything, she later said. But wanting doesn't make something true. Science doesn't run on hope, it runs on honesty. That decision saved millions in misallocated resources and redirected efforts to more viable treatments. Abigail wasn't unfeeling. She was brutally honest, with herself first, then the world. This ability to separate emotion from judgment gives Capricorn one of the rarest superpowers in the modern world, clarity under pressure. James, a Capricorn emergency response director, put it this way: it's not that I don't feel fear or hope. I just don't let those feelings decide which facts I focus on. That is emotional discipline. When others spiral, Capricorn centers. When others fantasize, Capricorn filters. When others deny the obvious because it's painful, Capricorn faces it head-on because reality is their true loyalty. And that's why they're right. Not because they don't care, but because they care about what's real more than what's comfortable. This is the kind of inner strength that doesn't just make great leaders, it makes great protectors. Capricorn doesn't just want to be right. They want to build decisions that don't collapse later. Have you ever let emotions cloud your judgment only to have a Capricorn bring you back to clarity? Tell us how it changed the outcome. Reason number 4. System thinking. Capricorn sees the whole chessboard, not just the pieces. Where most people see chaos, Capricorn sees design. Where others get lost in fragments, Capricorn is already mapping the entire system. It's not just about being smart. It's about being able to step back and ask, how do all these pieces connect? What's the root cause beneath this surface confusion? This is the gift of system thinking, and it's one of the biggest reasons Capricorn is so often right. Let me tell you about Diana, a Capricorn who became the youngest hospital administrator in her city. She stepped into a situation most people would have run from: chronic nurse shortages, patient complaints, staff burnout, and declining outcomes. The previous administrators had done what seemed obvious: hire more nurses. But it didn't work. Because they were treating symptoms, not systems. Diana did something different. She spent weeks just watching, observing the hidden flows between departments, the friction between protocols, the delays in communication. And then she saw it. "We didn't have a nursing problem," she later explained. "We had a paperwork problem. Nurses were drowning in administrative tasks. We were pulling them away from patient care with outdated processes and redundant forms. So instead of hiring more people, Diana redesigned the structure, digitalizing forms, removing steps, and rerouting responsibilities. Within months, staff morale improved. Within a year, patient satisfaction climbed. And within 2 years, the nurse shortage vanished, not because of more hiring, but because the system stopped breaking them. Capricorn sees what others miss because they instinctively zoom out. They don't obsess over one issue, they track how everything interlocks. That's what made Raji, a Capricorn software architect, so indispensable in a failing project. The code worked. The design was clean. But the app still crashed when users scaled. Everyone focused on their own piece. But Raji asked, what happens when these pieces talk to each other? Where does the system leak power, attention, or energy? He didn't just debug the app, he rebuilt the structure that held it together. Not flashily, quietly, and effectively. That's Capricorn. They don't treat life like a stack of problems. They see it like a machine: every bolt, wire, circuit, and gear. And when something's off, they don't fix the noise. They fix the architecture. Have you ever been stuck in a problem only for a Capricorn to come in and completely reframe the issue? Share how their systems thinking saved time, energy, or even a relationship. Reason number 5. Pattern recognition. Capricorn reads the past to predict the future. Capricorn has a quiet superpower that rarely gets the credit it deserves. They remember. Not just facts, but patterns. The emotional currents behind decisions. The rise and fall of systems. The cycles that most people think are random, but Capricorn knows are just repeating. They understand something deeply uncomfortable for the rest of us. This has all happened before. The faces change. The language evolves. But human behavior, institutions, cycles, they echo. That's why Capricorn so often sees the collapse coming, not because they're pessimistic, but because they've seen this movie before. Let me introduce you to Helena, a Capricorn who worked in financial regulation. Years ago, when a new wave of investment schemes hit the market, promising huge returns with low risk, the entire industry went wild. Headlines: euphoria, FOMO. But Helena stood still. She remembered the 80s, and the early 2000s, and the lead up to the crash of 2008. Different vocabulary, same pattern. Overconfidence, opaque financial instruments, regulatory complacency, dismissal of anyone who warned otherwise. Helena raised concerns. She was ignored, until everything imploded exactly as she predicted. Someone later asked her if she was clairvoyant. "No," she said. "I just have a good memory, and people have very short ones." Capricorns track what others forget. They store patterns like a private mental database: emotional, structural, historical. And it's not just in finance. Michael, a Capricorn teacher, saw it in education. Every decade, a new revolutionary method was introduced: trendy names, new textbooks, training programs, district-wide overhauls. And every time, it faded. They rebrand old ideas as breakthroughs, he said. But the cycle is always the same: hype, implementation, struggle, abandonment. Instead of blindly resisting or embracing new ideas, Michael observed the underlying rhythm. He knew how to spot what was truly new and what was just recycled with a shiny bow. That's what makes Capricorn wise. They don't fight the future. They listen for echoes from the past. This is why their warnings seem strange at first. They're speaking from a timeline most people aren't tracking. Because while others are swept up in the moment, Capricorn is watching for the pattern beneath it. Have you ever ignored a warning because it seemed too negative, only to realize later it had happened before? Tell us how a Capricorn's memory of the past helped shape your future. Reason number 6. Thorough research. Capricorn doesn't assume. They investigate. In a world addicted to quick takes and viral headlines, Capricorn takes a breath and reads the fine print. Where others form opinions from TikTok clips or secondhand tweets, Capricorn pulls out the original source. The court document. The data sheet. The overlooked footnote. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't want the truth. They want confirmation of what they already believe. But Capricorn, they want clarity. Even if it challenges them. Even if it means sitting in the discomfort of I don't know yet. Let me introduce you to Eliza, a Capricorn community leader, caught in the middle of a firestorm over water rights in her town. On one side, passionate environmentalists. On the other, desperate developers. Each group tried to pull her in, both assuming that because of her background, she would automatically take their side. But Eliza didn't take any side. For 3 months, she did what no one else had patience for. She interviewed hydrologists, reviewed legal cases in similar districts, studied the ecology of the watershed, the local economy, and the impact of long-term climate trends. Only after that, after everyone else had already shouted, argued, and accused, did she speak. And when she did, she shifted the entire conversation. Her conclusion wasn't trendy. It wasn't ideological. It wasn't us versus them. It was grounded in facts, nuance, and complexity. That's Capricorn. They're not easily swayed by noise. They don't repeat someone else's script. They build their own conclusion from the ground up, even if it takes time. And it's not just about big issues. Emily, another Capricorn, once made a major career shift. While friends pushed her with hype stories of follow your dreams, Emily wanted more than inspiration, she wanted information. So she talked to 30 people in the industry, shadowed professionals, read boring reports no one else wanted to touch. And then, only then, did she make her move. It wasn't impulsive. It was informed. And it worked. Because Capricorn doesn't dive in head first. They study the water first. Then the weather. Then the risk of sharks. Then they jump with precision. They're not slower. They're smarter. And their accuracy rate? That's no accident. It's research. Have you ever seen a Capricorn pause before taking a side and then end up changing everyone's mind because of what they uncovered? Share your story. Reason number 7. Healthy skepticism. Capricorn doesn't fall for hype. Capricorn is not easily impressed. And in a world that rewards hype, flash, and performative optimism, that makes them dangerous. Not because they're negative, but because they don't believe things just because they want them to be true. While others are swept up in collective excitement, Capricorn stands at the edge, arms crossed, eyes narrowed, asking the one question everyone else is too afraid to confront. What if this isn't real? They're not trying to ruin the mood. They're trying to protect you from what's hiding underneath it. Take Alexandra, a Capricorn journalist, who found herself in the middle of a viral scandal. A massive corporation was accused of unethical practices, and every media outlet raced to publish the most outraged headline possible. The public was furious. The story was trending worldwide. Everyone wanted blood. Except Alexandra. Something about the documents didn't sit right with her. They felt too perfect, too aligned with public suspicion. So while other journalists rushed to post, she paused. She verified sources. Reviewed original files instead of summaries. Consulted independent experts. And most importantly, she listened to her gut. It was too clean, she later explained. Real scandals are messy. This felt scripted. 3 weeks later, it all unraveled. The documents were revealed to be sophisticated forgeries designed to weaponize public outrage for financial gain. Alexandra didn't have to retract a word, because she never published what she couldn't verify. That's Capricorn. They understand a hard truth. The more a story confirms your beliefs, the more it needs to be questioned. It's not cynicism. It's wisdom. It's knowing that deception doesn't always come from liars. Sometimes, it comes from within, from our desire to believe things that feel good, even if they aren't real. Capricorns are immune to that temptation. That's why they frustrate the impulsive. That's why they disrupt groupthink. That's why they often stand alone at the beginning and are proven right at the end. In a culture addicted to speed and simplicity, Capricorn holds the line. And when the hype machine crashes into the wall of reality, they're already 10 steps ahead, sifting through the wreckage with a quiet "I told you so" in their eyes, but never on their lips. Has there ever been a time when a Capricorn's refusal to go along with the hype saved you or irritated you at first? Tell us what happened in the end. Reason number 8. Practicality over theory. Capricorn cares about what works, not what sounds good. Some people fall in love with ideas. Capricorn falls in love with results. In a world full of shiny theories, branded philosophies, and idealistic blueprints, Capricorn is the one standing in the corner asking, but does it actually work? This is where their truth-seeking instinct sharpens into something powerful, a ruthless commitment to outcomes over optics. They're not here to win debates. They're here to build things that last. Let me introduce you to Daniel, a Capricorn who turned an abandoned city lot into one of the most productive urban farms in his region. From the moment he started, Daniel was bombarded with advice. Follow permaculture. No, vertical hydroponics is the future. You need biodynamics, that's the only ethical way. But Daniel didn't pledge allegiance to anyone's dogma. Instead, he did something radical. He tested it all. He divided his land into test plots, each running a different farming method. Measured every input. Tracked every yield. Watched how each system responded to weather, labor, and sustainability over time. Theories are useful, Daniel explained. But they all come with assumptions, and I don't gamble on assumptions. I experiment. Then I trust what actually works. Over 5 seasons, he developed a hybrid method that blended multiple systems, not because it sounded good, but because it performed best under real conditions. And when critics accused him of betraying purity, he pointed to the food in people's hands. That was his answer. This is classic Capricorn. They're not here to impress you with intellectual gymnastics. They're here to build a bridge you can actually walk across. And it's not just in farming. Nina, a Capricorn startup advisor, once shut down a flashy rebranding campaign because the new mission statement, while beautiful, didn't align with the actual operations or customer needs. Everyone loved the wording. It was poetic, visionary, next-gen. But Nina saw the gap. A great theory that doesn't match your reality isn't a vision, it's a liability. Her decision saved the company from months of confusion, customer churn, and internal chaos. Capricorns aren't trying to be right in theory. They're trying to be right in practice. They don't care how pretty your idea is. If it doesn't hold up under pressure, it doesn't count. In that way, Capricorn is the ultimate truth checker. Not what do we hope happens, not what sounds best on paper, but what actually stands when the storm hits. Have you ever been swept up by a beautiful idea, only for a Capricorn to bring you back to reality and save you from disappointment? Tell us what happened. Reason number 9. Self-awareness. Capricorn confronts their own bias before it blinds them. Capricorn isn't just good at reading other people. They're terrifyingly good at reading themselves. While most people are busy defending their ego, Capricorn is in a quiet war not with the world, but with their own bias. Their own attachments. Their own blind spots. Because if you ask them what they fear most, it's not failure. It's being wrong because they didn't check themselves first. Let's talk about Sophia, a Capricorn CEO of a family-run manufacturing business entering its 3rd generation. She faced an impossible task, choosing a successor from within her own family, including her children. Everyone expected it to get messy, emotional, biased. But Sophia did something rare. She acknowledged her potential bias up front. She made a list of ways her personal relationships could skew her judgment, which child she might be too lenient with, which cousin she subconsciously didn't trust, who reminded her of her father, and why that might affect her objectivity. Then she put systems in place to check herself. Blind evaluations. Outside advisors with veto power. Documented reasoning behind every decision. I couldn't pretend to be neutral, she later said. But I could design a process that protected fairness even from my own preferences. In the end, she appointed someone no one expected. There were tears. There was silence. But 2 years later, the business was thriving under that new leadership. And family members who had been skeptical came back and said, "We didn't like it, but you were right." This is what separates Capricorn from most leaders. They don't assume they're unbiased. They assume they're flawed. Then they build systems to catch their flaws before those flaws cause harm. Capricorn doesn't wait to be humbled by the universe. They humble themselves first. That's why they're often the most trustworthy voice in the room. Not because they're perfect, but because they're constantly checking. Is this truth, or is this my attachment talking? And this extends beyond leadership. Martin, a Capricorn researcher, built his entire reputation not on always being right, but on being willing to revise his own studies. Most people defend their conclusions, he once said. I'm more interested in attacking my own logic before someone else does. Capricorn doesn't fear being wrong. They fear ignoring the small voice inside that says, "You're missing something." And that voice, it's the reason they're almost always closer to truth than anyone else. Have you ever seen a Capricorn admit their own bias before anyone else even noticed it? Tell us what that moment taught you about real self-awareness. Reason number 10. Commitment to excellence. Capricorn speaks only when the facts are solid. Capricorn doesn't speak to fill space. They speak when it matters. In a world full of voices fighting to be heard, Capricorn waits, watches. And then, when they finally speak, it lands like a hammer. Not because it's loud, but because it's built on undeniable truth. You'll rarely hear a Capricorn say "I'm sure," unless they truly are. They don't throw around confidence cheaply, because to them, certainty is sacred. Let's look at Jonathan, a Capricorn medical researcher invited to present at a global biotech conference. Other researchers took the stage with sweeping declarations, dramatic headlines, bold predictions, game-changing hype. Jonathan's turn. He was calm, cautious, measured. He outlined exactly what had been proven and exactly what hadn't. He distinguished between early observations and solid data. He highlighted uncertainties, named limitations, stated what still needed testing. Some in the audience thought he was being too reserved. One colleague even whispered, he just blew a huge funding opportunity. But 2 years later, most of the loud voices had gone silent, their breakthroughs hadn't held up. Jonathan's research, however, had matured, grown, been replicated. And when he finally did announce success, it was undeniable. Once you claim certainty too early, he said, you've not only compromised your credibility, you've compromised your relationship with truth. This is the Capricorn way. They don't chase applause. They chase accuracy. They don't bluff. They verify. It's not about being the first to say something, it's about being the one who says it with full integrity. In an age where hot takes dominate headlines, Capricorn waits for the full picture. They're not afraid to say "I don't know yet," because they know that when they do know, it will be real. This isn't perfectionism. It's respect. For knowledge. For facts. For responsibility. Because Capricorn understands that information carries weight. And the more people trust you, the heavier that weight becomes. So when they finally say, "This is what I believe," you listen. Not because they're charismatic, but because you know, they did the work. Have you ever trusted a Capricorn's word over someone else's flash, because you knew they wouldn't speak unless they were absolutely sure? Share how that moment proved their quiet credibility. Reason number 11. Delayed gratification. Capricorn plans for what others can't even see yet. Capricorn is often the last to be praised and the first to be right. Why? Because they're not chasing quick rewards. They're building foundations that most people won't appreciate until years later. This is the gift and the burden of delayed gratification. Capricorn doesn't need the instant hit of approval. They can delay the dopamine, delay the applause, delay the victory, not because they don't want success, but because they want it to last. Let's talk about Eliza, a Capricorn city council member in charge of revitalizing a neglected downtown district. Everyone wanted results, fast. Pop-up shops, Instagram-friendly murals, events that could fill election brochures. And while Eliza supported some of those initiatives, she refused to stop there. Beautification is not revitalization, she said. It's window dressing unless the structure underneath is rebuilt. So while others focused on photo ops, Eliza quietly pushed for deeper reforms. Updating 100-year-old water pipes, strengthening the power grid, modernizing zoning and safety codes. No one applauded. In fact, some accused her of delaying progress. But 15 years later, when flashier districts started to crumble under infrastructure strain, water main breaks, failing power systems, endless repairs, Eliza's district was still standing strong. Why? Because Capricorn builds for decades, not press releases. This trait shows up everywhere in their lives. Marcus, a Capricorn financial advisor, once turned away client after client during a speculative market boom. Everyone was making fast money and they wanted in. But Marcus held firm. If the numbers don't make sense, I won't sell you the fantasy. He lost clients, got mocked. And then, when the crash came, they came back. His portfolios were solid, steady, safe. Not because he got lucky, but because he planned for the long arc. Capricorn's delayed gratification isn't self-denial. It's strategic sacrifice. They give up the easy win today for the unstoppable result tomorrow. And in that way, they seem prophetic. But they're not psychics. They're patient engineers of reality. While others sprint, burn out, and wonder what went wrong, Capricorn climbs, slowly, silently, and ends up at the top. Have you ever rolled your eyes at a Capricorn's cautious long-term plan only to realize later they saw what no one else did? Share how their patience paid off. Reason number 12. Integrity. Capricorn won't compromise truth, even if it costs them. When the world bends to convenience, Capricorn holds the line. Not because it's easy, not because it's profitable, but because some truths are not negotiable even if it means standing alone. Capricorn's final and most powerful trait. Unshakable integrity. They don't manipulate facts. They don't cherry-pick data. They don't lie to themselves to feel better. And they will never lie to you even if it costs them your approval. Let me tell you about Marcus, a Capricorn financial advisor during one of the biggest speculative bubbles in recent memory. His clients were obsessed with the idea of easy money. Everyone around them was investing in sketchy ventures, guaranteed returns, get-rich-quick schemes, risky crypto projects. They begged Marcus to join the trend. They accused him of being too conservative, too outdated. But Marcus refused. "If I can't explain where the profit comes from, I don't trust it," he said. "And if I don't trust it, I won't put your future into it, no matter how shiny it looks." He lost clients. His firm ridiculed him. But he didn't bend. Years later, when the market crashed and fortunes were wiped out, Marcus's remaining clients didn't just survive, they thrived. His portfolio hadn't grown fast, but it was real, solid, protected. And now, those who mocked him call him the only one who told the truth. That's Capricorn. They don't confuse popularity with wisdom. They don't trade their values for applause. And they're willing to say no when everyone else says yes, because their compass points to what's right, not what's easy. This same integrity shows up in love, in parenting, in business, in silence. Capricorns don't do gray areas when it comes to ethics. They won't let you lie to yourself. And they won't lie to you just to keep the peace. "I'd rather be misunderstood for being honest," said Rosa, a Capricorn therapist, "than liked for telling someone what they want to hear." That's how Capricorn earns trust. Slowly, quietly, permanently. Because when they give you their word, you can build your life on it. And when they're right, and they often are, it's not luck, ego, or timing. It's the result of discipline, thought, courage, and above all else, integrity. Have you ever known a Capricorn who refused to compromise even when it hurt them? Tell us how their honesty left a lasting impact on your life. Final conclusion. Capricorn isn't always loud, but they're almost always right. So what have we really learned? Capricorn's accuracy isn't a fluke. It's not arrogance. It's a design built layer by layer, decision by decision, over a lifetime of quiet observation and relentless self-discipline. They are right more often because they think further ahead than most, simulate outcomes while others guess, remove emotion from the data, see systems, not fragments, track history and recognize cycles, research deeper than headlines, question hype and follow evidence, choose results over theory, confront their own bias before it blinds them. Speak only when facts are solid. Delay gratification for true success. And above all, refuse to betray truth for convenience. Capricorn doesn't rush. Capricorn doesn't flinch. Capricorn doesn't chase trends. They sit. They watch. They calculate. And when they speak, you better listen, because by the time you feel the consequences, they've already seen them coming. In many ways, Capricorn walks this world like a quiet architect of truth. They build judgment the way they build everything else, with precision, patience, and permanence. And that's what makes them powerful. Not flashy, not loud, but undeniable. Speech balloon final reflection for you. If you've ever dismissed a Capricorn's caution, ignored their skepticism, or rolled your eyes at their silence, ask yourself, what were they seeing that you weren't ready to face? Sometimes, their silence was the warning. And their stillness, it was preparation for a storm they already predicted. Call to action. If this deep dive into the Capricorn mind resonated with you, whether you are one, love one, or have ever been corrected by one, it's time to join our growing community here at Zodiac Secrets Revealed. Hit subscribe, tap that notification bell, and share this video with someone who needs to hear the truth even if it stings. And in the comments, complete this sentence. Capricorn was right about. Your story could be the one that helps someone else finally listen. Because in a noisy world full of hype, half-truths, and illusions, Capricorn is the quiet voice of reality. And reality, it always wins.